Well, I want to discuss all of this with my next guests who are with me in the studio here. Aoife McCullough is a doctoral researcher at the London School of Economics. Good to have you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Dr. Sahidi Bilan is a Nigerian political analyst, both with a wealth of knowledge and experience of the country and of the region that we've been discussing. And we've been talking about why what goes on in Niger, of course, doesn't stay in Niger, and why this story has such impact beyond its own borders. The military junta refused to meet with a joint delegation from ECOWAS, the region, the UN and African Union for talks earlier today, as we understand it. They cited security reasons, so we can discuss what we believe that those might be to their mind. But what do you make of that? That's where we stand at present, sir.
We understand the behavior or the attitude of the military regime, because after ECOWAS has threatened them to intervene militarily, they have imposed upon the country, economic sanctions, which people are really suffering, which start having effect. So I think that are reasons why they don't want to meet them up.
Aoife?
Yeah, so as Sahidi says, emotions are high, so there are certain risks with an ECOWAS convention arriving in Niamey. But at the same time, we have to ask, okay, why doesn't Chani want to meet? Why did he not meet with Victoria Nuland? And are there negotiations going on between different parts of the junta in the background while they figure out their position before they can actually move forward with negotiations with them?
So my sense is that you believe that there is room for negotiation at this point. It's just when and with whom, correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
right.
Yeah. So the generals who led this coup are much more senior than what happened in Burkina Faso and in Mali. There have been coups in the past in Niger, for example, in 2010. There was a coup which toppled Tanja, that then the leader of the coup took power and then transitioned to elections. So there is a precedent for transitioning, but it takes time to negotiate these. There's a lot of disagreement within the different parts of the security forces about how to conduct counterterrorism operations, about how to move forward, about the position of the French.
We said at the start of this segment that the military junta met with their counterparts from Mali and Burkina Faso, two neighbouring countries who've also experienced coups, of course, in the last couple of years. Have a listen to what Mali's government spokesman said during that meeting.
I would like to remind you that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have been dealing with for over 10 years with the negative socio-economic, security, political, and humanitarian consequences of NATO's hazardous adventure in Libya. Of course, we ask ourselves, if it took us 10 years, how many years would it take us to get over another adventure of the same nature in Niger?
How important has it been to hear from these leaders out of Mali and Burkina Faso? And these are their support for these coup leaders shows that there are cracks in ECOWAS, and it's ECOWAS that certainly the West is sort of relying on as the as the body that might be able to properly broker some sort of breakthrough here.
Now, this displays and show how splitted ECOWAS has become. And this translates also the unfairness of treatment, because there were, a coup d'etat in Guinea, coup d'etat in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and the way they proceed was completely different when they come to Niger. Instead of trying to, to negotiate, they threaten them to intervene militarily. I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that has contributed to, to bring together Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger.
Yeah. Well, something he said at the beginning is true. This idea that Niger has been a bastion of democracy and stability is not exactly accurate, is it? Yes, it's improved, and yes, it may be the best in its neighbourhood, but that doesn't mean its people have been living good lives. In fact, quite the opposite. And I just want our viewers to get a sense here of what's going on. 12.5 million or more people do not have access to clean water. That's almost half the population. Only 1 in 7 have access to electricity, and over 50% of kids aged 7 to 16 are not in school. Let's just, if you will, just describe, you know, off the back of what I've just, you know, those facts that I've just delivered there, just describe what kind of state this country is in at this point.
I mean, it is one of the poorest countries in the world. It has been fighting terrorism on its western borders and on its southeastern borders. And what has been happening is that a lot of the foreign support for the security forces has focused on its special operation forces, which has targeted the jihadist groups, but it hasn't backed up the gendarmerie, who are mandated to protect the population. So when the attacks have happened, the gendarmerie, they still take a long time to respond. So the population is not experiencing an increase in security as a result of foreign presence.
So the stability and security for those who live in Niger doesn't seem as if it's the priority for the sort of Western counter-terror efforts that are, you know, that are at risk at present, and what so many people have a concern about here. If the coup succeeds, Niger will be the last domino to fall in a list of neighbouring countries, as we've been discussing, ruled by military junta. What would that mean for the wider Sahel region, sir?
If you look at what's going on right now there, it's important to find a solution, a negotiated solution. Why? Because of the geographical position of Niger. You know, who has access to Niger can easily, you know, get in touch with North Africa, East Africa, through Chad, Algeria, and also West Africa. So it's essential that a solution, negotiated solution, you know, can be worked out. Otherwise, the whole region, the whole Sahel will be inflamed, and it will affect also the West because, you know, through the desert, so many immigrants can easily come to Europe. So
we so often talk about counter-terror efforts there. The counter-migration efforts, of course, is something that will be, you know, exercising the minds of so many politicians, as you rightly point out, in North Africa, particularly in Europe.
And I think also that the West should change their attitude, you know, especially the NATO. Why? Because right now we have 4 American military bases in Niger, 3 military bases from France and Italy, Germany. So the impression was that with the presence of all these forces, Niger should be secure. You know, people should believe better off. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Aoife.
So what this means, so if the junta stays in power, I think it will be very difficult for French forces to stay in Niger. But also, I think that if they do negotiate a transition to elections, I think it will also be very difficult for the French to stay, because I think any candidate will have to promise the Nigerian population that they will negotiate withdrawal of French troops. So that's a huge shift in the region. There may be a possibility for American, German, and Italian forces to remain in the country. These are very delicate negotiations. Care has to be taken by diplomats to understand the situation and to say the right things.
Having you both on is hugely important. Thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid I'm going to have to take a break at this point. We're nearly run out of time on this show, but we'll have you back. You know, let's hope that we are, that people are listening, that they understand that these conversations, this diplomatic track needs to be delicate, and it's terrific having you on. Thank you. We're going to take a very short break. Back after this.